The idea for the geometric art really started in Russia. That first painting there is by Lyubov Popova. But then Stalin, this was back in the teens and 20s, told them they couldn't do that kind of art. They could only paint workers in factories, farmers in fields. They couldn't do that. So some of the Russians went to Paris and with the French formed a group called Cercle Carré. And these ideas were brought back to Carmelo in Argentina by Torres Garcia. And he convinced Carmelo to stop doing things like this. You can recognize a guitar and a piece of a man in there. And to go totally to just color, line, form. But the difference between MADI art and what the Russians had been doing, till they got stopped, was that he cut the canvas and curved the canvas and made irregular shapes. So that is characteristic of MADI. It's never just square or rectangular like this first piece is.
Where did you learn about MADI?
From the artists themselves. My husband had always been an art collector. And so when the first time, well, not the first time, but anyway, we went to Paris and we had dinner with some artists who were MADI artists. So we bought some of their art. And since it's a group, when you meet one, you meet lots. And so we soon had a pretty big collection of MADI art. And we met Carmelo Ardenkin, the founder of MADI, and bought a lot of his art. So pretty soon our whole house was filled, not only with other art, but with MADI art. And when my husband's law firm bought this building, they decided that we would have a small museum here. We pay rent, it's not free, but they allowed us to hang art everywhere. It's in the ladies' restroom, it's in the hallways, everywhere you go there's art. And we enjoy it very much. And we have art from all over the world. This is a Japanese artist here, Yumiko Kimura, who had a show. All of these are little thin pieces of glass glued together to make this interesting shape. She made this piece, the big one, in Dallas, because as you can see, it would be difficult to ship that. Well, the M in MADI stands for movement, so some of the pieces move. It stands for abstraction and maybe asymmetry. These are all characteristics. The D is for dimension and the I is for invention. So they're very inventive. MADI art comes off the wall and out of the frame. And though we added plain geometric art that can stay in the frame, in the square or the triangle, because most Dallas artists don't do MADI, they just do geometric. Mm-hmm. But here in the main part of the museum, most of it is MADI. When we talk about invention, we have things like this. The artist made these peculiar shapes, and then he put water and plexiglass inside them. So they just do all kinds of different things.
So you knew Carmelo?
Yes.
What was he like?
Well, he looks sort of like Einstein. His picture's on the wall over there. A very kindly kind of person, but very intense about his art. When he came to Dallas, I had to immediately take him over to Azel Art Supplies. He had to buy some things. He went to my kitchen, sat down, began doing his art, borrowed my cups and saucers and plates to draw around and colored them. And he had to make them in irregular frames. He never put anything in a square or rectangle. So he worked very hard on that and gave us some Dallas designs, some of which are upstairs, some of which are at my house.
Did he find Dallas interesting?
I don't know. He mainly liked to sit outside. Well, you know what? He liked to go to Starbucks and places like that. He'd pick up the stirrers and put them in his paintings. But he liked to sit outside in my backyard and drink his coffee or his sparkling water. That's what he liked to do in Dallas.
So what about the mechanism turning behind you?
All right, that's by Wolf Reutemann from Uruguay originally. And he did all of these pieces here, the house and the other pieces that are turning and the pieces behind me here. Because he was one of the founding members of this museum. He's now deceased, but he helped us get the museum started.
Do you think the museum, the presence of the museum in Dallas has influenced Dallas?
I don't know. I do know that people who come in here really like it and they're impressed by it. And a lot of those people are artists, by the way. But I don't know whether it has or not, to tell you the truth.
Do you think it's influenced the artists? Is there any artists you've met that maybe weren't doing geometric
I don't
art
know.
at the
Most of
beginning?
them, when they come in here, already like this kind of art. It may make them make more of this, and certainly if they want their art in the museum, that's what they have to do. So that's hard for me to say. This is by a Russian artist. It's called Standing Thread. It's actually a very thin wire, but it would flop over, go all the way on the ground, if it were not held in place by these metal pieces that intersect the wire at intervals but never touch each other. Only the bottom one is fastened down. So under tension, it holds it up. And so it uses math and physics to make the art. And that's the sort of thing we emphasize with the students who come here, that it's important to be scientific and mathematical in making this art.
So who made this one?
This was made by Vyacheslav Kolyachuk, who had a show here. He and his daughter, both Russian artists, but he's also a scientist.
So there's an awareness of this museum all over the world.
Yes, there is.
Is it the only MADI museum?
It is, it is. They show, of course, in various galleries, all, in France and Italy and Hungary and so forth. But this is the only museum.
Mm-hmm. What about Buenos Aires or Uruguay? Has there been any artists, a lot of people that work in?
Well, of course, both Carmelo Ardenquin and Wolf Reutemann, who helped us start the museum, were from Uruguay. However, Carmelo started the movement in Buenos Aires. And there are a lot of artists. Juan Melé, we had a show of his here, from Argentina, but it's not really the center of the MADI movement anymore. And I think it's because a lot of the artists moved to Paris. A great many of them went to France, and a few to Italy. So those are the strongest places right now for MADI art, are France and Italy. There's a lot, though, in Venezuela, as a matter of fact. These are some of our Islamic works here. I've already mentioned Shafak. This is typical MADI work. You see, it's very different, using different mediums to create it. And MADI can just be irregular, like this one. These are all by Italians. This is by a South American. He's from Chile, and it's one of my favorites. I like that one. Over here are some more. For example, these hanging cubes, colored cubes on the wall, actually there's 3 circles and 2 triangles hanging there, but I like that the shadow on the wall in part makes a heart. So all of these pieces in the museum that have the hanging cubes are by that artist who took MADI from Argentina to Italy. And then the pieces over here are by an Italian artist who always uses these dowels in his work. And
They make music.
that one does, the others don't. But each artist has his own unique style. And I think that's part of what makes the art interesting, because it's creative art.
What do you think you've been able to accomplish here with the museum? It's been,
Well,
what, 20-some years?
I think we have, the museum isn't quite that old. We've been collecting more than 20 years, but the museum actually opened, well, we had a preview in 2002, and it opened in January 2003. So, I don't know. I know, as I said, that a lot of artists really like to come here, and a lot of visitors. In fact, some of the visitors say, we were looking for something different, and we really like this museum because it is concentrated on one form of art, and it's unique.
Mm-hmm.
So